The Music 101 podcast for you today. And I'm doing this because we need to have some extra things on the Doctor of Digital podcast and Music 101. This is going to be the soft hits. It's the soft rock summer of 1970, a year I remember very well. Songs that defined a generation. The summer of 1970 arrived with uncertainty hanging in the air. Woodstock's muddy fields were barely dry. The Vietnam War continued despite growing protests, and American culture was navigating a profound transition between the revolutionary spirit of the late 1960s and whatever would come next. Yet, amid this turbulence, a collection of songs emerged that offered something the times desperately needed: melodic beauty, emotional honesty, and a gentle soundtrack for processing change. The Three Musketeers at Mayfair High School. Myself, Don, and Rod were becoming politically aware, and we watched the events in Vietnam as draft notices were not long in coming. Let's explore how these songs captured our emotional landscape of that transformative summer while we played ping pong and basketball at Rod's house, and why these songs resonate with listeners more than 5 decades later. Cat Stevens' Wild World. That song opens up our journey with one of the most tender farewells ever committed to tape. Released in September 1970, this song became an instant companion for anyone facing life's uncertainties. And who hasn't in that moment of breaking up with a gal? It didn't happen to me just then, but that girl and a devastating moment was coming. I just didn't know it at the time. Stevens' acoustic guitar work creates an intimate sonic space, as if he's sitting across from you, offering gentle counsel to someone stepping into the unknown. His voice carries genuine empathy rather than judgment, striking that delicate balance between concern and acceptance. The melodic hook in the chorus, "Oh, baby, baby, it's a wild world," became one of the era's most recognizable musical phrases, its ascending notes perfectly capturing both warning and wistful blessing. I hope you get a lot of nice things to wear, but then a lot of nice things turn bad out there. For listeners in 1970 navigating their own transitions, whether geographical, relational, or ideological, this became a reflective companion. It validated the fear of stepping into uncertainty while affirming the necessity of moving forward anyway. Stevens understood sensitivity, which made his later conversion to insensitivity all that more confusing. The Bee Gees' Lonely Days. From tender farewells, we move to the ache of separation with the Bee Gees' Lonely Days. Here, the Bee Gees are at their most Beatlesque, which is both their achievement and their albatross. The group can be enjoyed for their artistry, but as long as we had the Beatles, why do we need the Bee Gees? In any event, that memorable piano riff opens the song and immediately establishes an emotional tone: bittersweet, longing, yet somehow hopeful. The arrangement demonstrates sophisticated pop craftsmanship, lush strings, tight harmonies, and a melody that lodges itself in your memory after a single listen. Barry Gibbs's falsetto, which would become one of the most distinctive sounds in 1970s disco music, already displays remarkable control and emotional expressiveness here. What's remarkable about Lonely Days is how it achieves genuine emotional depth while maintaining commercial appeal. The sentiment is universal: missing someone, counting endless days until reunion, holding out to hope that separation is temporary, but the execution is anything but generic. The harmonies showcase the brothers' years of working together, their voices blending with that rare sibling chemistry that creates something greater than the sum of its parts. When Barry sings, "Lonely days, lonely nights, where would I be without my woman?" There's real vulnerability in his voice, a unique and distinctive quality. Van Morrison, Into the Mystic. Van Morrison takes us on an entirely different journey with Into the Mystic, a song that transcends simple genre classification. Released on his landmark album, Moondance, this track blends soft rock with folk, rhythm and blues, and something approaching the spiritual, creating a sonic transcendence that Van explored throughout his career. Morrison's voice has a soulful, lived in quality that transports you immediately. There's wisdom in those vocals, a sense that he's not just performing lyrics, but sharing something he's genuinely experienced and understood. The imagery, sailing ships, foghorns, souls connecting across time and space, evokes belonging and homecoming without ever becoming overly literal or sentimental. We were born before the wind, also younger than the sun. The genius of Into the Mystic is how it makes that spiritual journey feel utterly natural and accessible. You don't need to understand every image or parse every metaphor. You simply let the song wash over you, and suddenly you're sailing too, heading towards some home you've always known but never seen. The Moody Blues, question. The Moody Blues captured the 1970s zeitgeist of uncertainty and searching with Question, a song that became both a contemplative companion and a hopeful anthem. Why can't we get answers about hate, death, and war? Now that's profound. Justin Hayward's poetic lyrics don't provide easy answers. Instead, they validate the act of questioning itself, suggesting that uncertainty isn't failure, but honesty. The dynamic arrangement mirrors the emotional journey from doubt to determination. Those gentle verses, with their introspective melody and thoughtful lyrics, build gradually towards a soaring, almost anthemic chorus that transforms questioning into a kind of heroic act. The orchestration is sophisticated without being overblown, adding weight and drama at precisely the right moments. What made Question resonate so powerfully in 1970 was its willingness to articulate with fundamental uncertainties weighing on people's minds. Personal questions about love and purpose are intertwined with larger societal questions about direction, war, death, hate, values, and meaning. The song acknowledges both scales of inquiry without privileging one over the other. Your romantic struggles and civilization struggles are both valid, both worthy of serious consideration. Why do we never get an answer when we're knocking at the door? For listeners navigating the 1970s changing world, Question permitted to be uncertain, to wonder, to search. It transformed doubt from weakness into a kind of strength, and in doing so, it created space for honest reflection without despair. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Our House. From grand questions about life's meaning, we return to intimate simplicity with Our House by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Graham Nash wrote this warm portrait of domestic bliss after moving in with Joni Mitchell, and it captures something essential about finding peace in the ordinary details of shared life. Those gentle acoustic guitar strums that open the song immediately create a welcoming atmosphere. The imagery is deliberately cozy and specific. Cats, flowers, fireplaces, breakfast routines. This isn't grand romance or dramatic declaration. It's the simple joys of waking up together, sharing space, building a life in quiet moments rather than sweeping gestures. What makes Our House particularly poignant in the context of 1970 is its lack of pretension. While so much was unstable and uncertain politically, socially, culturally, Nash found beauty in domesticity, in choosing to create a peaceful sanctuary with another person. The song doesn't ignore the chaos outside of their song, Ohio. It simply suggests that creating spaces of warmth and safety matters, perhaps especially when the larger world feels turbulent. Our house is a very, very, very fine house with two cats in the yard. For listeners in 1970, many of whom were questioning traditional structures and values, Our House offered a different perspective. You could reject convention without rejecting connection, could embrace alternative lifestyles while still creating homes worth celebrating. The personal could be revolutionary, not through rejection, but through intentional, loving creation of new ways to live together. The Carpenters, They Long to Be Close to You. The Carpenters' breakthrough hit, They Long to Be Close to You, brought a polished sophistication to 1970s soft rock landscape. Karen Carpenter's voice, warm, clear, effortlessly controlled, made every word feel utterly sincere, transforming this Bacharach and David composition into one of the decade's defining performances. The Carpenters were from neighboring Downey, a town in which I had a short stint of working in, and although I never saw them there, they were staples at one of my alma maters, Cal State Long Beach. The arrangement is deceptively simple. That memorable opening with its descending melody created by Richard Carpenter's ingenious use of a Rhodes piano immediately establishes the song's elegant atmosphere. The instrumentation is tasteful, never overwhelming, and Karen's vocal, which takes center stage as it should. Every element serves the voice, serves the lyrics, serves the emotion. The lyrics express admiration and wonder at someone's mere existence. Why do birds and stars and all of creation seem drawn to this person? The cosmic scale of the imagery contrasts beautifully with the intimate warmth of Karen's delivery, creating a love song that feels both universal and deeply personal. For listeners in 1970, many exhausted by turmoil and drawn to beauty, They Long to Be Close to You offered exactly what its title suggested: closeness, connection, the comfort of a voice that felt like a friend. The Carpenters proved that soft rock could be both commercially successful and genuinely artful, setting a standard many would chase but few would match. Chicago, Color My World. Chicago's Color My World brings us back to gentleness, capturing quiet romance with elegant simplicity. This was the band that Don, Rod, and the jazz rock ensemble at the high school tried to emulate. As much as they tried, they never could. Chicago was awesome and inspiring in their musicianship, and in this song, their gentleness and lyrics. At just over 2 minutes, this brief piece, both instrumental and vocal, makes an emotional point and departs, leaving listeners wanting more rather than overstaying its welcome. The lyrics speak to transformation through love, how someone's presence literally changes how you perceive the world around you. It's a sentiment countless songs have expressed, but Chicago found a way to make it feel fresh through musical understatement and genuine feeling rather than dramatic declaration. As time goes on, I realize just what you mean to me. In the context of 1970, Color My World offers respite. Although Chicago was capable of making bold, brass heavy statements on other tracks, this song whispered instead of shouted, creating a moment of calm reflection amid their typically more robust sound. It showed that soft rock's power sometimes came back knowing when to pull back, when to let a quiet moment speak for itself. Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. We reach what many consider not just the pinnacle of 1970s soft rock, but one of the greatest recordings in popular music history. One time in my first real job at the drive-in dairy, this song came on, and in a difficult moment, it provided the perfect piece. It is one of the most moving and gentle songs I've ever heard. Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water. This isn't just a song, it's a musical embrace, an anthem of compassion that transcended its moment to become timeless. Art Funk Garfunkel's soaring vocals remain one of the most breathtaking performances ever captured on tape. His voice starts with restrained tenderness in the opening verses, then builds gradually to that powerful gospel influenced climax that feels genuinely transcendent. Paul Simon's lyrics offer unconditional support with memorable directness. When you're weary, feeling small, I will lay me down. This isn't romantic love, it's human compassion at its most profound and universal. When darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. That gospel influence isn't coincidental. Simon drew inspiration from the Swan Silvertones and other gospel traditions that understood music's power to uplift and comfort. But he universalized the sentiment, removing specific religious context to create something anyone could embrace, regardless of belief system. It's spiritual without being sectarian, profound without being exclusive. For listeners in 1970, Bridge Over Troubled Waters was exactly what its title promised: a way across difficulty, a source of strength when personal resources feel depleted. It validated the need for help without making vulnerability feel like weakness. And decades later, it continues serving that same function, proving that while context changed, the human need for compassion and support remained constant. James Taylor, Fire and Rain. James Taylor's Fire and Rain shows us another dimension of soft rock, deeply personal storytelling that draws listeners into one person's experience while somehow making it feel universal. Taylor was a neighbor of one of my elderly friends, Mrs. Hudson, who heard him regularly since he was around a great deal and used to just come over to their house and play music. She didn't realize how famous he was since he was just that guy down the street. Taylor's gentle guitar work creates an intimate sonic space, while his soulful voice, with that distinctive slight rasp, conveys both pain and resilience. The lyrics reference real experiences: the death of his friend Suzanne, his time in psychiatric facilities, struggles with addiction, and the dissolution of his first band. These aren't abstract metaphors or fictional scenarios, they're Taylor's actual life, and that authenticity resonates through every line. I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. The chorus acknowledges life's capacity to contain both destruction and renewal, both pain and beauty, often simultaneously. There's no self pity in Taylor's delivery, just honest reckoning with what he's experienced and survived. The production is sparse, mainly just Taylor's guitar, bass, drums, and subtle orchestral touches, which keeps the focus exactly where it should be on the voice and the story. The genius of the song lies in its balance. It's specific enough to feel authentic. You believe Taylor because he's clearly drawing from real experience, yet universal enough that listeners could find their own struggles reflected in his words. You don't need to have experienced psychiatric hospitalization or addiction to understand fire and rain, sunny days, and loss. Those images capture something essential about the human condition that transcends any individual circumstance. Elton John, Your Song. Elton John's Your Song feels like discovering a heartfelt note, simple, sincere, and brimming with youthful wonder. This was the breakthrough that introduced the world to one of the most popular music's enduring partnerships. Elton's warm piano playing and melodic genius combined with Bernie Taupin's genuine, unpretentious lyrics. There's something refreshingly honest about Your Song. It doesn't try to be clever or sophisticated. It simply acknowledges its own limitations while offering something genuine. The narrator admits he's not wealthy, not much of a poet, not capable of grand gestures, but he can offer this song, this honest expression of feeling, that self awareness endearing rather than self depreciating. The melody is instantly memorable, building from gentle verses to a searing chorus that expresses pure joy at someone's existence. Elton's piano work is deceptively simple, nothing technically flashy, just beautiful chord progressions and a memorable main theme. His vocal delivery conveys sincerity without straining for effect. You believe he means every word he's singing. For listeners in 1970, just discovering the magic of the new decade, Your Song created an instant connection that has lasted over 5 decades. It introduced Elton John not as a flamboyant performer, that would come later, but as a genuine artist capable of creating deeply moving music. The song's success proved that sincerity could still work commercially, that audiences would embrace honest emotion expressed with musical excellence. Bread, Make It With You. We conclude our song journey with Bread's Make It With You, the song that truly defines soft rock's golden sound. This song reminds me of a high school crush, Sandy Mills, but that never happened. I still have the song, though. David Gates created something special here, a perfect distillation of what made the genre so appealing to millions of listeners seeking beauty, warmth, and emotional connection in their music. The arrangement exemplifies restraint as an artistic choice. The acoustic guitar work is delicate but assured, creating a gentle foundation. Gates's vocals are smooth and inviting, never pushing too hard, always serving the melody and lyric. The harmonies are lush but not overwhelming, adding richness without creating clutter. Everything exists in perfect balance, nothing too much, nothing too little. The melody is absolutely unforgettable, one of those rare creations that lodge in your memory after a single listen and remain there permanently. It flows naturally, each phrase leading logically to the next, building to a chorus that feels both inevitable and surprising. This is sophisticated songcraft that wears its sophistication lightly, never calling attention to its own cleverness. For listeners in 1970, Make It With You provided exactly what its title promised, an invitation to connection, to partnership, to building something together. It suggested that despite all the uncertainty in the world, human connection could still provide shelter and meaning. The song gave people a sense of warmth and comfort when those qualities felt scarce in the broader culture. Decades later, Make It With You remains the song that, when people think of early 70s soft rock, captures exactly what they're remembering: gentle beauty, emotional sincerity, melodic perfection, and that distinctive sound that defined an era. These songs from 1970 created more than a summer soundtrack. They established an emotional language that would influence popular music for decades. Soft rock in 1970 was establishing its identity between the folk rock of the late 1960s and the smoother, sometimes overly polished sounds that would dominate later in the decade. These artists created space for introspection, for vulnerability, for beauty amid chaos. They proved that music didn't have to be loud to be powerful, didn't have to be complex to be meaningful, and didn't have to choose between commercial accessibility and artistic integrity. The cultural influence extended beyond the charts. These songs shaped how a generation processed change, found comfort, and understood their own experiences. They became the soundtrack for countless personal moments, first loves, difficult transitions, quiet reflections, and celebrations. They proved that popular music could address real human needs while maintaining broad appeal. In the end, these songs remind us that music at its best doesn't just reflect our experience, it helps us understand it, process it, and move through it. The artists who created this music understood something profound about the relationship between melody, emotion, and the human need for connection. They gave us gifts that keep giving, songs that remain vital and moving more than 50 years after that transformative summer. The legacy of the 1970s soft rock lives on, not in a dry analysis, but in lived experience, in the moments when someone reaches for these songs because they need exactly what they offer. After all these years, they still work. They still comfort, still inspire, still connect us and to ourselves. And that's the highest achievement any music can claim. And I want to thank everyone for listening to the Dr. Digital podcast and Music 101. And I've got a couple volumes out on Amazon, Burning America, and also On Track, Ian Hunter. I also want to thank the supporters of the program, that is the publishers of those two works as well. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's G. Mick Smith, PhD, the Doctor of Digital. Also listen to the Doctor of Digital podcast. And of course, my friend Daniel, Music 101. Until next time, this is the Dr. of Digital signing off for both Dr. of Digital and Music 101. Until next time, Deus Volt.